Hello friends, welcome to VFX Pipeline channel. In this video, we will see why Linux operating system is widely used in VFX studios and what are the advantages and disadvantages of using Linux operating system inside VFX Pipeline. In this video, I'm not gonna give you very basic and simple logics like Linux is free and that's why it's widely used. No, we will see some practical use cases why Linux is important operating system for a VFX pipeline. So let's get started. So I'm gonna share my screen so you can follow along with me, and my screen is here. Okay. So now our topic is why Linux is in VFX Studios, and most of the time people ask me why Linux is actually using in the studios. Since in the institutes they learn in Windows, most of the users, most of the artists, they are using Windows operating system at their home. No one is using Linux. And so, what is the use? Like, why studios, when we are talking about the production use case, why Linux is actually getting utilized there? And that's what our uh, main thing that we are going to find in this video. So, follow along with me. Okay, so before we start diving in all this Q and A's and all these things like why VFX is using Linux, I would like to give you three questions, and which is I found in vfxplatform.com, and this is a good reference site where you can actually find out the interesting stuff for VFX pipeline. What are the latest libraries supported, widely used? So all the studios, standard studios, they are using all these standard libraries in their pipeline. So it will be very easy to interchange some of the tools within the studios along with when you are developing open source tools. So make sure you are following the particular versions. Otherwise, other studios won't get benefit of using your tools, open source tool. I mean, right? Okay, so the first question here is which is available on frequently asked question in vfxplatform.com. You can find directly the link in the description of this video. But three interesting questions related to Linux operating system, and that's why I put it here in my slide. First is why the focus on Linux? What about other operating system? And this question asked on the vfxplatform.com. So here, according to VFX platform, so Linux is actually particular in the larger studios build sophisticated automated pipeline. So most of the pipeline that in my next slide, I'm going to show you what exactly these pipeline and what these means in terms of like what automation that we are talking about and what kind of things is actually making it simpler. And here what they are mentioning some of this like different Linux distros. So if you're new and want to learn more about like what is Linux distro is the distribution of the Linux operating system. Because Linux originally it's not an operating system, it's a kernel, and there are operating system built on top of that kernel. So mostly widely used operating system is one is Red Hat based and one is Debian based. So Red Hat based operating system, when you hear about like .rpm, where you install packages from yum, and Debian based operating system where the installation extension is .deb, and like one of the widely used is Ubuntu, Linux Mint. These are the example. You can find all these kind of Linux distribution in DistroWatch, which is mentioned here. Also, you can see this DistroWatch, so you can find out all the operating system available on that. So since Linux is important, and that's why it is like available on VFX platform where studios are recommending all this Linux related Q and A's on that platform. Why you can't just recommend any particular Linux distribution? And this question is asked because there are so many operating systems are available. As I mentioned that it's like Debian, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, MX Linux, and Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora. There are tons of operating systems available. Okay, but which one you should use. And so there is no particular Linux operating system recommended by anyone at this time, because some studios are using CentOS, which is widely used. Some are using Debian. Some are using Ubuntu. Most of the time, they are using Ubuntu because um there are some good interface in Debian based operating system, which is CentOS is looks like quite simple, not that much fancy compared to the Debian based. We'll come to that point also in our next slides. Is there any particular Linux distribution? Again, the same thing, that's easier to adopt, but uh, they do not recommend any distribution. And so basically here they mention that Red Hat Enterprise Linux and CentOS and Ubuntu are both commonly used in the industry. Here you can see this line, right? So Red Hat built that operating system, and Red Hat is not completely free because they charge for their support and services and fixes. But CentOS is the open source version of Red Hat. It's a clone, and these days now it's completely, the development is happening under the Red Hat also. So that is also like support wise, it's coming very great. Okay, I have many videos which I created related to Red Hat and CentOS. You can check it out in my channel. Okay, let's move ahead and come to our topic. So let's start with the advantages. That is something that you should understand one by one. We'll go one by one, and if you see any difficulty to understand anything, if you want to make more clarification, you can just comment below this video and I will answer it. Okay. So first thing, fast, better performance on operating system. And when I'm saying this fast and better performance, because installation is fast, and even overall operating whatever thing that you are operating, like copy files and in starting the applications, launching the applications, uh, all these things will be, compared to other operating system, is much faster. You no need to refresh. There is no refresh button in Linux. Okay, for if you haven't used Linux, then there is no in Windows you need to go and refresh all this thing, like, because it's by default, it's when it's load, that's it, right? So while once you start using then Windows and Linux parallelly, so then you will start seeing and feeling that, like, okay, this is much better, the performance is much better of the application. You feel like light operating system. And why I'm saying this, because if you load Windows operating system in your drive, that will install all that 20-30 GB of Windows library in your C drive, right? But if you want to install Linux operating system, you can pick what you want. So if you just want like some basic GUI level packages, you can just select those, and rest of the things you no need to install. So you can, if you want to make a file server, you can select all the libraries which is related to file server. If you want to make your Linux operating system as a web server, just install things related to web server. So very easy to customize your installation in Linux compared to other operating system where you have to install every single thing. And that's the reason, when we have a lot of things installed and everything is in a startup, things are getting slower, and at the end of the day, you will lose the performance. Okay, so that's what my first point is. The second point is easy installation and deployment of softwares. And here I'm talking about CentOS and Red Hat, and there is a utility called Ansible. So in Linux, in VFX Pipeline, it's way easy to deploy because there are 400, 500 operating system. And if you want to install or uninstall or upgrade any software, you should have full control. So you can centrally deploy application. It's just not like a application, but also sometimes you need to execute some scripts. Maybe you need to mount some paths, or maybe you need to add or execute some of the things in the startup. You need to change or mount a drive, putting some entries into fstab. These all things you should have control in a VFX pipeline, because most of the time when we are controlling the VFX pipeline, make sure we should have a easy deployment of paths, environment variables, control all this thing centrally. So that will be much more easy for IT and tech to handle and deploy tools faster. So that is one of the most important part, which is in Windows or other operating system. It's quite challenging, and we need to find out some workaround for that. Okay, so for example, it's let's say if you want to set some of your or you want to mount some of the drive. So okay, so in Windows, things can be done from a different way, where you can in Active Directory, if you're using Active Directory, you can actually set the rule centrally. But in Linux, there are ways where you can just simply, execute a command and put an entry directly inside fstab and mount. It will be mount automatically, right? So both have advantages, and this same point will become in the disadvantage also, but I will cover in my next slide. So fast network sharing using NFS. And guys, if you don't know NFS, NFS is actually a network file system where it is developed within the Linux environment. So if you have Linux server and Linux workstation, and if you are communicating Linux to Linux, NFS is the best fast solution that you can use. Usually, mostly, if you have Windows and Linux, then you use SMB, which called Samba protocol for sharing the file for network sharing. But NFS is, if you have complete 100% Linux pipeline, then NFS is there is no alternative for NFS in terms of speed, in terms of reliability. It's very good. Uh, SMB is also widely used in a mixed cross-platform environment. If you have few workstation which is using Windows, then you also need to install Samba packages. Okay, now come to the other point is a repo based package installation. So guys, this is also one of the most convenient things since I started using Linux operating system. If you need any packages, for example, if you want to install Apache server in your operating system, all you have to do is just log in as a root user, or just use sudo command if you have sudo rights, and then yum install httpd, and it will install a Apache server in your system, and it will be available on port 80 immediately. You can see a demo website on your system. It's very easy. You no need to go and download, because all the standard packages are available on the repositories. And if you don't know what is repositories, repository is the collection of all the packages, RPM files in one location. It's in a database. Whenever you want to install any software, you can just simply type yum install and the package name, and even you can start typing few words of that name and just put tab. It will auto complete, and your life will be much more easier. You don't need to find out the exact spelling also. That is something which is good. I use DNF because from CentOS 8, they introduced DNF instead of yum, but yum is still available. So yum stand for yellow dog update manager. So that's what it's used. Okay, so let me come to my next point, which is developer friendly environment. And guys, trust me, as a software developer, I prefer more developing on Linux compared to Windows. And the reason is, when we are in terminal, the Linux commands are so much interesting. We have much more direct control over operating system. Automate things will be much more easier. And since if you want to do anything with the operating system, and if you have command prompt in Windows and Linux in and terminal in Linux, as a programmer you understand so much power you have in Linux terminal compared to what we see inside a Windows command prompt. Okay, so after 11, I mean Windows 11 onward, Windows is trying to improve their terminal, but still, I would say, in a programmer or software developer perspective, Linux is way forward, and Windows is no longer. Windows is good in terms of, like, say, creating beautiful UIs and interfaces, and all this fancy stuff, pompy stuff is fine. But I know developers, they use most of the time they spend their time in IDEs, studying code, finding solutions, making some logics, and so they love what they do. Okay, come to the other point: web servers and database servers. So guys, these, if you want to host a website, you don't need a 20-30 GB of space just to install a operating system. Instead, you can just install a minimal version without UI version of CentOS, and install HTTPD library, host your website. So within few GBs, I would say, or maybe few MBs, not even GBs, your operating system will be ready, and rest of the space you can utilize for your uh, website or whatever HTTP file that you want to store. And the same goes to the database. If you want to create MySQL database, or NoSQL database using MongoDB, or if you want to install, see, MySQL is not supported with the or Linux operating system, and I'm talking about CentOS. Instead of MySQL, it's replaced by MariaDB. So that is also, there is no big difference. I guess this is like there's some sort of licensing problem with MySQL, and that's why. But the command will be same. There is no issue in the command. Instead of yum install MySQL, you need to type yum install MariaDB. That's it. Okay. Now it is secure than other operating system, and when I'm talking about the security, uh, there are less viruses. I mean, and all the attacks, ransomware, and the spyware, all this kind of warm applications is uh, very less compared to Windows. I mean, if there is 100 of these kind of malwares exist, then only certain percentage will be, let's say, less than 10% will be for Linux. And the reason is, there is very less amount of end users they are using Linux. And so whoever creating those bad programs or viruses, or any kind of these kind of elements, they want to target a bigger audience. So that is one thing. And it doesn't mean like they cannot create, but still the power of root user is restrict lot of things inside your operating system. Since it's simpler, there is no you have full control over the firewall. Even the firewall system is much more easier. The ports, you have much more control compared to Windows Defender firewall. So then you can actually easily control all this thing. Still, by security wise, Linux is way ahead than other operating system. Multiple users can log in the same PC at the same time, and this is one of the interesting points. So, for example, if you have a Linux operating system, which is installed in a machine, in a powerful machine where you have 128 GB of RAM and powerful graphic card and decent amount of SSDs, then 3 4 artists or anyone can just simply log in into that workstation at same time. So no need to disable one user and then log in another user. So that is something which is very interesting in Linux, which is in Windows. If you logged in, and if I want to log in into the same system, it will show that okay, somebody is actually want to use this system, so you want to share, and then one person will log out. But Linux is giving us this flexibility. You can start multiple session, and the same PC can be utilized by multiple user at the same time, and that's what the beauty of Linux operating system. And the lastly, the advantages, it's open source and the community, open community. So since the source code is available, I know there is less than 1% people who care about it is open source, because you just get the complete operating system. I mean, nobody is actually going and writing the operating system again. The rest 1% people are the one who are actually taking the source code and playing around with that. But still, the code is available, you can do whatever you want to do. It's your choice. And the community is open. Most of the problems if you face, you can find many article based websites, many YouTube channel which can give you a better solution for your problems if you're facing anything related to Linux. Most of the solution of Linux related problem in VFX Pipeline, you can find solution on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to VFX Pipeline, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Now we'll move to the disadvantages of the Linux. So here we go. Disadvantage number one, it's not complete user friendly. So guys, why I mentioned this is because Linux, even installation and the first use for that, like what kind of file system we should choose. Should we choose XFS or should we choose ext3, ext4? What is swap? What is what is, slashes, roots, and so these kind of things is in one time it's completely scary for very end user non-technical persons, but that's the reason because most of the people who are in VFX or in a animation or creative, they just want a simple solution where they hit next, 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 and everything is done. But even the installation process and making thing works in Linux is not that much straightforward still. And I would say that in last few years things are actually going in a very, kind of a very visual way of installing thing. Previously it was very raw and you need to do like a lot of command line stuff to actually get it done everything. And if you want to install multiple operating system at same time, for example dual boot Windows and Linux together, that will be a nightmare to actually put the entries inside the grub menu so you can see which operating system you want to select. Okay, but if you stuck somewhere and if you want to try that and if you need a solution, I already created videos on that, how to install Windows and Linux together, so you can find out on my YouTube channel. Okay, second disadvantage is if you want to use Linux in your VFX pipeline, you need a highly technical IT staff to manage Linux-based infrastructure. It's not traditionally, Windows kind of thing, like where just to share one folder, you can just right click and hit share button and everyone will start seeing those share folder. It's not work like that. So make sure all the people in your IT should know what are the Linux commands, what are the basic Linux commands that needs to be used, and that is which is one of the challenge. Very few people have very high expertise of Linux operating system, and that's why. And if someone are available, they are very highly paid. So that is some of the disadvantages that I feel it's a disadvantage for Linux. Next thing is it needs time to do R&D for deploying new software and setup and configuration. So, for example, if you have a plugin or a software and if you want to install on Linux, it's not in the same way in Windows, it will not work. Very few softwares which give you this flexibility, but installation and setup and configuration of new softwares on Linux is required some research and development, and configuration required some of the technical skills to understand where you need to set the paths, how you need to set up the configuration, how you can set up the the access, the folder roots, ownership, and so all this kind of knowledge that your team must have. Some VFX softwares and plugins are not available on Linux. So this is a big no for the users who are using Adobe softwares like Photoshop, After Effects, and Premiere. These softwares won't work on Linux till now. And 3ds Max is still until now there's no build available for that. And similar to that, if you are but there are alternatives available. For example, if you are using Photoshop, there is a GIMP and Krita available for that. You can easily use those. If you are using After Effects for compositing, You can use Nuke. If you want to use a open source version, you can use Netron. If you don't know what is Netron, find out. There are a lot of videos available on my channel about what is Netron, how we can use, and you can find the link in the description of this video. Okay, sometime UI freezing issue, and to fix this, restart is the only option. And this is, I don't know why this comes, and this is as per what I understand is this issue comes first of all that I agree, and this issue comes for mis configuration of some softwares in the operating system, and just even if you need to finding out, it's required some time. So most of the time in Linux things are, set it and forget it. You don't need to mess every time and fix things in the operating system. So once you're done, just leave it. But when you are using in a artist workstation, as a artist workstation on the floor, thing goes crazy. Sometimes it's freezing, sometimes it's automatically getting crashed because some libraries are conflicting with each other, and that's required a constant. Again, it's a like a it's required some time to do the R&D, and that's part of the R&D. Okay, user cannot mount network drive. So in if you are using Windows, you can just simply right click and mount network drive. It's very easy for that, right? But if you want to permanently mount a drive in Linux, then you need to put a entry inside etc fstep file. Okay, so that's required a root user access to the operating system. And if you don't have that root user access, you can't do that. So end user cannot. And even if you are an admin level or IT guys, and out of 100, only few people can actually do this kind of technical work, because it's required interaction in the files. And even if you just forget to put one comma, if you forget one proper argument in that etc fstep file, trust me, you are not able to start your system again, because you can, but it will go restart in the recovery mode, and all you see is the black screen, and that will again scare you. So all then in the recovery mode, you need to go inside, fix all this stuff in the file where you did the mess, and then you can start normally. So, in my personal experience, when people start messing with that, they see the black screen and that is the end of their journey in Linux. But don't be scared. In Linux is interesting. Once you start using that, that will be very, very, power and control will give you in your hand. So that's an interesting thing. And the last disadvantage which I found here is there are many Linux distro available, and that's create a big confusion because okay, so now I want to use Ubuntu or CentOS. So what are the advantage? CentOS is bit old. Ubuntu is using the latest libraries. Ubuntu is fancy. Colors are good. Transparent UI. Login screen. Tons of themes available. Wow. So that's what people want. But CentOS on other side, just simple GNOME desktop, no fancy UI, straightforward rigid operating system interface. I mean, that's what it provide. But which one we should pick? So it's a confusion. And if you pick, some users say that I need a fancy one, and some say that, oh, I need a rigid one. And then to mix all those is again a big challenge, because one set of library is using apt based system, which is Debian. So Debian use apt install, apt get install something. Other side is using yum, so yum install something. How are you gonna mix and bridge those things? RPM files available for CentOS, deb file available for Debian. Conflicts keep happen on those files. So it is sometimes it's very hard and challenging to find like which distro, and that is also can create confusion. But I don't think so that is a big thing, because that is one time you set it, and after that you don't need to worry about that. And once you set one operating system, just make an image, clone that into entire studio, and you're done. It's very easy process to do that. Okay, so I will go through these points again. And basically it's like they are advantages similar, and the disadvantages also you can see here. So again, you can see this sheet here. You can pause it, and if anything still you feel like okay, you need more clarity, just comment and I will reply. Okay. And also, if you want to learn more about Linux and you want to, stay in touch with us, you can subscribe to VFX Pipeline channel, and also you can join our VFX Pipeline club, where we have more than 255 technical directors, programmers, R&D experts, Nuke developers, Nuke TDs, Maya TDs, Houdini TDs. I mean, most of the TDs available here around the world. If you have any question, you can ask questions in the group and everyone will give you the answer. So I hope you learned something new in this video, and this is the interesting end of this video, and I'm looking forward to create more interesting videos for you, and please subscribe to VFX Pipeline channel. I will see you in my next video. So okay, thank you.